Sean.
Gentlemen,
Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you.
great to be here. Hey,
Right.
surprise for you both.
Whoa. Thank you.
Oh, cigarillo. Thank you, man.
Get us into the Maher space.
Okay. Guys, welcome back to Talk Tuah, the companion podcast to Miss Haliey watches Talk Tuah. We're your hosts. I'm Cam.
And I'm Pete.
And we're joined today by a very special guest, Sean.
Sean, it's great
How's it
to
going,
have
guys? It's
Sean.
great to be here.
you. Wow.
So, Sean, we wanted to bring you on. You work in showbiz. You have for a long time, correct?
That's true. Years. Yeah.
And you know a good deal about Bill Maher.
Yeah, I would consider myself probably one of the top experts in town on Bill's body of work.
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, because this is our first time stepping a bit out of our usual chicken coop. For the past number of weeks, we've been covering Haliey Welch's show Talk Tuah. It's our first time, tackling a whole different beast in Bill.
Right.
It's kind of a similar chicken coop, given that Haliey is on the episode that we're covering today. But yeah, it's going to be great hearing your insights on Bill's behavior and attitudes. And
I'm very excited to dig into the weeds of it all, and I found it to be quite a affecting episode.
Well, guys, before we jump in head over toe,
Yeah.
I just want to get something squared away.
yeah,
Is it Bill Maher or is it Bill Maher? I want to make sure I'm not mispronouncing it.
It's a common question. Many people think Mayer because of John, but it is Maher. Bill Maher. That is
Maher.
his preferred pronunciation, as far as I know.
okay,
Yeah.
that's great to know.
Yeah.
Because that H, it's been tripping me up. Because
It throws you off.
It's off in the H.
I want to go
And
the
there's
Maher.
an E in there, right?
Yeah,
I believe it's Maher.
the E comes after the H. I think that's what it's the H and the E like
Right.
together.
If we could just
it really-
drop those MAR, I think it'd be
the
definitely-
M. You want to drop the M?
No, just MAR.
Oh,
I think
okay,
would
yeah.
make the most sense to me.
Yeah, I guess so. Like Johnny Marr.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Like Mar Bar.
Well, now that we got that all squared away, yeah, what did you guys think about the episode? I mean, what are, initial impressions, I guess, Sean?
Well, it's classic Bill. That was my first thought, and I think Haliey holds her own in a really sophisticated way, in a way that sort of challenged Bill's energy in a way that he doesn't often receive
Yeah.
on his podcast. Club Random,
Yeah.
is what we're referring to.
He's used to getting away with these episodes scot-free, being able to say what he wants to say. But
That's right.
Haliey, brought some pushback this time.
Absolutely, little sort of moments that sort of threw Bill off of his natural rhythm, and I thought that was fascinating to see as someone who has extensively studied sort of his every episode of Club Random.
Yeah.
This was kind of a new ball game.
Yeah.
Now, has the set itself always, had that kind of perennial bachelor feel to it? Has it undergone a lot of renovations?
It's always been a pad. Bill likes to keep things sort of feeling loose and spontaneous, and I think his set does a great job of actually allowing the guest to feel comfortable coming into his space as an outsider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess I just want to start off with I caught this moment at 22 seconds in the episode where in the introduction we get to a title card announcing the guest for this episode. And I noticed right off the bat Haliey's name is misspelled. I don't know if this was meant to disarm her a bit. Maybe this actually added fuel to her coming in and, coming in as a firebrand to maybe
Pete,
push
just
back
say what
to
it
Bill.
is. It was a slap
Look,
in the face.
It was.
It was. He didn't even know her last name.
Well, it was her first name. It was
He didn't know her first name, but then when she came on the set,
that's
he
true.
asked her what her last name was. So it seemed like he was totally unfamiliar with this guest.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if Bill flubs things pretty regularly or...
I would say that likely that's the fault of his producer. Bill is usually very astute in sort of his observations, and I actually didn't catch that. You guys are a couple of eagle-eyed.
Yeah. I mean, we've been covering
Hosts
her
here.
for 13
Yeah.
weeks or so now.
Now, would that fall on the blame of the producer, or is there a graphics editor? I mean, who threw in the title card ultimately? It's going to be someone in the post-production team.
Well, granted, I imagine someone in the production team probably slipped a piece of paper to the post-production team with her name on it, and so I imagine the name there was probably misspelled, so that the editor was, going to be in the
There's
wrong.
multiple levels to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a large team of people that work on Bill's Club Random. I would guess that it was not intentional on their part.
Do you think Bill saw it? Does he have to approve of the edit beforehand? Because most podcasts go through anywhere from 10 to probably 20 rounds of editing with a leading talent signing off on it, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
Are things different for Club Random?
Bill, again, in the essence of spontaneity, Bill actually doesn't watch cuts of Club Random, and
Really?
he gives that to his team, and they sort of bring to the viewer the finished cut.
Yeah.
He likes to just be in the moment
Yeah.
with the guest.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if we were going to say one nice thing, though, about the editing department, I will say they definitely had a cool, Miami Vice sort of intro.
Yeah.
I thought the music
Yeah.
was really fun.
Absolutely.
Did you guys like it?
Really brings you into Bill's world, I felt. I don't know the guy, but based off this, he's a cool guy.
I would say absolutely that's astute, correct. And I love the vibe. It gets me into the mood to sort of sit down for an hour and a half of randomness.
Do you feel like Bill really kind of exhorts that sort of masculinity that we're seeing a lot from podcasts these days, the sort of manosphere? Because, he has a whole assortment of liquor next to him. He's playing with a cigarillo. He's got a stripper pole, what looks like a stripper pole in the wide shot.
That's one way to look at it. I definitely think that he plays into the masculinity of it all. He wants that to be part of his brand, and he has since he really came on the scene years ago. And this is Bill at his most unfiltered in Club Random. He can do whatever he wants. The medium doesn't discriminate. So it's sort of that's what he wants out of it.
And he certainly came in with a bellicose attitude, because he comes in and greets Haliey and drops the name Haile Selassie as a joke.
Nice to meet you.
Selassie. How are you?
Bill's coming in clearly with a warlike mindset. He's coming in. This is his place to own, his podcast, his show. Incredible name, by the way, Club Random. I just cannot stress that enough. Just such a fun name. Really
beautiful
lets you
name.
into Bill's world.
Well, Pete, I think Haley certainly took it like a champ, she wasn't apoplectic about anything, right? She was pretty even-headed about it.
Yeah, she was cool as a cucumber. And that made for, I don't know, it was a fun discussion where Bill came in almost as a father-like figure as well.
He referred to himself as daddy.
He did at a
Yes.
moment.
Does he always do that, Sean?
It's unusual for Bill to be calling himself daddy in a podcast. I think it was because of the younger guest who most of his audience may not be familiar with. I think he felt that instinct to be more paternal in this episode in a way. There was discourse in the comments that I felt took it in a different direction that I didn't necessarily agree with as someone who has seen sort of every episode of this. I think he was really just trying to be more protective in the end.
And, there were a couple of times throughout the episode he referred to Haley as adorable. Do you think that kind of fits that vibe?
Yeah, exactly.
Just more-
It's sort of like, a father calling his baby daughter, adorable.
Well, Haley's no baby. And she shows that this episode. She has a lot to learn from Bill, but I think he did a great way of teaching. He was certainly pedagogical in his approach to this interview. I guess before we even dive into the conversation, I want to talk more about the formal elements of this episode. We see some interesting camera angles, strays a bit from Haley's approach to podcasting, but Bill's, the main angle, the wide angle on them seemed like a frame within a frame almost. We have the framing of look like a pillar in the room, a support beam.
Exposed brick.
Yeah, and then there's another pillar to the left, and so it just looks like you're looking in at this conversation. It's like an intimate setting, but it's almost voyeuristic, even in this wide approach. And then we even get another, even more voyeuristic angle. That's a side angle, looking down at them almost. That I every time I cut to it, it was thought provoking. It made me think about what is the camera person, the camera op at Bill's production company. What are they trying to convey with this?
That's a great question. I think you're right on the money there. Bill has a lot of involvement with the cinematography of the podcast. He likes to keep it artful, and he, from what I understand, takes a lot of inspiration from great directors like John Cassavetes and people of that era.
I certainly smelled a woman under the influence throughout the entirety of this podcast.
Exactly. And
I mean, Haley was drinking High Noon.
That's
an
true.
alcoholic seltzer.
That is true. So there was technically a woman under the influence. I never thought about that.
Would
That's
I be
fascinating.
amiss if I were to say it very much reminded me of the willow tree in Starry Night that kind of blocks your view of the town? Why throw that in there? Why not give us a beautiful view? It really makes you think, does it not? I might be amiss here, guys.
I didn't feel that way.
It might be closer to, how about this? Raging Bull, right? Where you have a frame within a frame. There's a shot of a woman in the kitchen. Yes. The mad boxer's out here, very much like Bill, the mad stork, with all this information. And they're just kind of in two different worlds.
There's a great Twitter account, X account, called Every Frame a Painting. Bill is actually a follower of.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That would explain it.
So he likes to be very intentional with what he's saying, with the visuals.
Yeah, he's a study of the cinematic arts.
Correct.
Or a student
Oh my
of
God.
it, my bad.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. I mean, you can also sense it in the bisexual lighting that I noticed on this set. I mean, there's a bit of purple flare behind them. I saw some bluish hues. I don't know what that was trying to convey. I don't know if I don't know much about Bill's sexuality. I don't know if you even know much, how open he is.
He keeps it a bit under wraps.
Yeah.
I will say that I've been curious as a scholar, but
He's pretty tight-lipped.
He's pretty tight-lipped. As far as bisexuality goes, Bill is very interested in sort of the ideas of woke culture, and that's.
Is he a crusader against PC culture?
He's all for it.
He's for it.
Bill's all for it.
Because there was a point in here later in the episode, he was kind of talking about Iraq and how maybe we probably shouldn't have done that. But he said, he used to be way more left, and he said, they've got annoying. So now he's kind of looking at it through another lens, maybe. More
reactionary lens, in which he argues that we probably shouldn't have gone into Iraq.
The left has gotten so obnoxious that, it's, I still think we probably shouldn't have gone into Iraq. But anyway.
He still does believe that, cling to that belief.
And Pete, I'm not saying he's going completely to starboard. I think he's very much, his politics are on the port side of things. But, just throwing it out, food for thought.
I don't know if I picked up on that segment.
We can get to the timestamp.
Yeah, we'll get there later.
Before we move on, though, I want to pitch a theory to you guys.
Of course, yeah.
Something about the frame to me almost felt like when Bill gets, talking about sexuality and things like that, which there were a couple moments throughout this, it almost felt, and Pete, to your point about being voyeuristic, as if anyone who would call Bill out and say, oh, that's a perverted thing to say, it's like, well, you're the one peeping Tom into my studio. Mm-hmm. It almost felt like we were peering into his world.
Yeah.
And so if anything, we are the perverts for kind of watching that. It was a private conversation.
Yeah.
That slipped out of the cracks, right?
Yeah. That's the feel that I get from it as well. Is every episode is a private conversation that could be taken at a dinner party, but it happens to be filmed. We're very lucky that it's filmed for our enjoyment, but I would say Bill doesn't hold back in a way that most podcasters would.
Really? Do you think this is more intimate than maybe what you'd see on another podcast? Because we've been covering Talk Tuah, and those episodes, I'm just going to pull one out of the hat, just for example, like with Josh Richards, who was a master conversationalist.
Natural at it.
That was like, peering into... the best inner conversation you've ever had, right? Because he was just going on and on about things like his favorite sports.
And he's known for that.
Yeah.
Favorite sports. He's a 22-year-old in social media. He's just got a lot to say.
He's got an incredible hot take that milk actually is great to drink with pizza.
That blew my mind.
That I agree with.
Yeah. Well, that's all Josh.
And let's not forget... Let's not forget the point he made that really was the watershed moment for me was when he confessed he knows how to do his laundry.
Yeah,
Josh does.
He does. Yeah. He knows. He puts in the Tide Pods and then he presses go. I will say, not to push back, I haven't seen a laundry machine that has a button called go. It's more start.
Yeah.
Usually it is start.
Yeah.
And listen, all that to say is that, conversations like that, I think are really handcrafted. They're one of one, abstract expressionism type of thing. So you think a lot of podcasts don't really have that compared to Bill's?
I would say it highly depends on the guest. And there are episodes of Bill's podcast that, don't quite capture that same essence of a dinner party, private energy. And those are the ones that go in the vault and kind of never to be seen.
Yeah.
There are many, many lost episodes that are known to have been filmed of Club Random, and we're sort of, we've never gotten access to them.
Yeah.
In any meaningful way.
Well, pray tell, how do you know about these archived episodes? Are they?
I wouldn't call them archived. Unreleased would probably be the terminology. Bill's estate has sort of provided unlisted links for archival purposes.
Okay.
For scholars to sort of have like a wider berth of knowledge of the podcast at large.
Okay. Are you allowed to share like some of the guests or things you learned on
That's
these?
the issue, is that I am under very strict NDA with the estate, so I can't mention guests, episode titles.
Don't tell me he's had Justin Bieber on.
That is something I
Yeah.
can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay, all right, fine. I won't push it.
Please.
Should we get into this conversation? There's just so much they talk about for this hour and 6-minute episode. I mean, it starts off with Bill calling Haliey a bug you kind of flick.
One of those little bugs that roll up when they feel, and then
Oh, the roly polies.
yeah, and then you like shoot them,
Yeah, you just like flick them real hard.
and must wake up like to them like 1,000 miles away.
Yes.
That it's kind of like what happened to you.
He compares it to a roly poly where, it's curled up and maybe asleep, and you flick that thing and it ends up 1,000 yards away. And
Well,
then
he was saying shoot.
he did say shoot. I don't know if he hunts roly polies.
I took that literally as him with a BB gun. You're not shooting a 50 cal at this
Look,
thing, right?
I mean, Haliey kind of parsed it. She made sense. She's like, I think you mean flick. Bill might hunt roly polies in his neck of the woods of New Jersey, where he's from, but Haliey said flick. I'm going to take it as flick. And it's like, yeah, he was comparing that Haliey, had this fateful night where this viral moment was captured on camera, and all of a sudden she's in Bill Maher's studio in L.A.
Right. I almost feel there's a confusion there. I believe he was comparing Haliey to the character Flick from A Bug's Life, the Pixar film, which is Bill is a huge Pixar fan.
Okay.
And
A Bug's Life is on his top 4 in Letterboxd?
I believe it is.
Really?
He has it's a private letterbox, so I'm not 100% sure on that, but he does try and compare most of his guests to his sort of their favorite Pixar counterparts. Yeah.
Bill Movies Maher.
Yes.
Is his nickname, I imagine.
That's something you could call him.
I mean, he talks a lot about his time in show business. He's a big proponent of show business. He talks to Haliey about like, I bet show business is so much better than the business you were doing back in Tennessee, which she disclosed was working at a spring factory. There's a little bit of back and forth in terms of just what labor is rewarded more handsomely than other kinds of labor. Sure. But Bill made it clear that he loves his time in show business, and I can only imagine the movies he cherishes, the movies he's really connected with and resonated with over the years.
100%.
So is it safe to say Bill's probably never worked a 40-in kind of production line job at a factory?
I would say that is safe to say.
Did he kind of grow up in show business?
He's been on stage since he was a very young man. That's been most of his experience so far. He's had a very successful career in show business.
Yeah. I mean, he also, we know Bill's more of a political figure. At least that's what I knew him as before approaching this episode. That was the extent of what I knew about him. And he lived up to that quite quickly. In the first few minutes, he immediately takes a swipe at Trump. I guess this was filmed the same week as the attempted assassination in Pennsylvania from this past summer.
In a later breath, though, I think he also claims you kind of have to be insane to do something like that.
He did. So he's bipartisan in that he was taking a jab at the person who was shot at and the shooter.
Yeah, Bill is known for sort of making fun of both sides in an attempt to connect everybody.
Yeah,
that's his main shtick.
So you don't think he would be really for or against Crooks taking up, climbing up the ladder with the rifle, pointing it right at, now President Donald Trump?
I don't think he would have a strong opinion either way.
Do you think he thought it was mainly inappropriate?
Can you elaborate on what you mean by inappropriate?
Do you think that Thomas Crooks should have voted the typical way rather than vote with a bullet? No, do you think Bill thinks that?
Yes.
Okay.
He's a proponent for democracy and
Right.
democratic
Absolutely.
structures.
He talks a lot about the Greek influence of democracy later on in the episode. We were not there yet, obviously.
Yeah.
But I have to wonder with that because I've pushed back on this idea before that Greece really kicked off democracy. Did no civilization figure it out before that voting? Is that the dirty little secret of anthropologists that Greece maybe didn't really start it off? Maybe I'm getting too ahead of myself here.
Do you have another suggestion of a society?
Yeah, pray tell.
Well, I think the idea of looking at a lot of, tribes of people that lived, were more indigenous on continents before the Greeks came along, more of a consensus-based democracy rather than direct one person, one vote.
Sure.
Because is a vote democratic, or is what's more democratic having an idea, getting everyone's consensus until you have a world that everyone can live in, rather than spending all your time convincing people to vote for or against your idea?
That's a good point you bring
Because there's going to be a lot of people if you have an idea to vote for, and they vote no, the thing gets yes, they're going to feel like, oh, my ideas weren't taken into account at all.
Sure. I'll say that as sort of in my own anthropological way,
Yeah.
I'm more an expert on Bill
Yeah.
than sort of any other kind of like
Democratic structure.
exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So
Well, he knows his history, though, right?
he
Because,
does.
He's quite the historian.
a lot of people say that Bill, you're going to sit down on his podcast, you're sitting down for a history lesson. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, I think many people trust him to sort of bring history to the forefront of his entertainment. It's part of his brand.
Yeah.
He's
certainly professorial.
Yes.
And he had quite the syllabus this episode because he tells Haliey to sit her ass down and listen to his advice. Not his words, but
They implied it.
it was implied, yeah, that Haliey should listen to his advice on helping her navigate the whimsy of Hollywood and show business at large.
That's something he's very knowledgeable about.
Yeah, apparently so.
But with great knowledge comes great responsibility to be correct with that knowledge, I'd assume. Pete, there was one moment that you pointed out, and specifically with dates, that maybe he flubbed it with World War II.
Look, he was giving Haliey a hard time about not knowing her years of certain world wars, 1 and 2. He clarified for her that World War I took place between 1914 and 1918. And then he went on to say that World War II, now that was the first half of the 1940s.
World War II was the 1940s, the first half of it.
And I do think it's worth noting that Adolf Hitler, invaded what is Poland on September 1st, 1939. So, the war technically broke out then. That is what most historians
That was the
know as
opening date of Blitzkrieg.
Yes.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
That's 39, not 40.
Right.
Do you want to push back on that at all?
If I had to guess, it was probably a slip of the tongue.
Okay.
Bill is usually very on the money as far as dates goes. He actually has like a photographic memory, and he reads a lot of history textbooks. So I don't believe that wasn't something that he knew deep down. I think it may have just been him misspeaking.
Maybe he's a bit like Billy Joe Armstrong in that he was woken up when September 1939 and then October, November, December was over.
Exactly.
And he was just into the 40s and the World War II was well on its way.
Exactly right.
Or unless, he doesn't consider the invasion of Poland really the kickstarting metric of the war, which I don't know what happened there, right?
Yeah.
What was that?
I think Hitler made an advance. It was certainly unwarranted. At least that was the general consensus at the time. The Poles tried to push back, clearly not strongly enough. It led to just more and more conflagrations around the globe. But
I'll say I wish they got more into this in the episode as well.
I do wish that, yeah. But, there was so much history for Bill to teach Haliey. And, I learned a lot else from Bill, including when the Beatles were big. He said that was in the 60s, not the 70s.
That's right.
Which Haliey had guessed.
When he compared Haliey to the Beatles, or, Beatles being the cure to declining culture post JFK assassination, which he said that JFK was shot in the back of the head.
Haley said that, actually.
Haley said that.
Yeah, she hazarded the guess that JFK took a bullet to the back of the head.
But did Bill correct her there? Because, or not correct, but look, I mean, there is some speculation that JFK's head originally went backwards and then rolled forward. So, you know, with the grassy knoll and bridge, if there were multiple shooters, then there's the idea floating out there that maybe the bullet came in through the front, out the back.
Yeah, if you follow the laws of momentum, typically when something enters the back of something, it's pushed forward.
There's no way it would go back
No.
first
Typically not.
with physics. Because
Yeah.
they did all sorts of watermelon tests post that where they would just, you know, put a slug in that thing. And
Yeah.
the melon, sometimes, maybe once in a blue moon, would go back and then go forward.
Really?
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, look, his head became a pink mist. I mean, let's just get back to what really matters in this episode. There is something that I do want to get ahead of now that we've been focusing on a few of Bill's flubs. There's one that I took note of that I wanted to mention, which was when he was talking to Haley about the song Empire State of Mind by Jay-Z. Bill did make sort of a slip of the tongue and say that Rihanna sang the hook on that song rather than the actual artist Alicia Keys.
Okay. I mean, maybe I can grant him a little bit of leniency here. I think Haley got into his head a bit. She started that conversation off saying that the lyrics to it, at least as she believed, were Wet Dream Tomato. She said,
Yes.
Concrete Jungle, Wet Dream Tomato.
It's that one song Jay-Z's in. It's like, concrete jungle, wet dream tomato. You know?
Are the actual lyrics, "This is what dreams are made of"? Something like that?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah. So it's possible that Bill was just like, hey, if we're going to roll with the punches here with Haley's initial flub, maybe I can let a flub in. But he did then double down in calling that song Empire State of Mind. He refers to it as New York, New York.
That's right.
Famously a Frank Sinatra opus.
Most likely this is because he is such a Frank Sinatra fan.
Yeah, I can see it.
It's just it's another confusion.
Yeah.
Bill is getting older. That's something that we have to face.
Yeah.
Bill's, in his late 60s at this point. He mentions it a couple of times.
I'm sure that's tough for you to see. Your heroes aging like that.
It is hard. However, I think in many ways he's still as sharp as a tack, and so that's why I would like to just take that opportunity to come to his sort of defense.
I mean, look, he made a sleight of hand with his tongue.
Yes.
And that kind of thing is going to happen. When you're on a podcast, you're talking about a lot of different information.
It's a lot to juggle.
I think my biggest worry for Bill here was kind of his penchant for liquor, drinks, smoking. I mean, the substance really, I don't want to just come out and say it, but I'm like, I think maybe fans should start looking at the idea of having an intervention for Bill. I mean, he was, drinking the whole time. He talked about how drinking liquor, all liquor is poison, right?
Sure.
So I think he acknowledges that.
Everything in moderation. I mean, that's something that Bill's a big proponent of.
But he's got a tequila right next to him, right?
He's got a champagne bucket full of seltzers. He didn't even know what it was stocked with. I mean, he
That's
asked
right.
Haley about her high noon.
That's because he's not the one personally stocking it. I will say.
Okay, I guess, yeah,
But-
when
but
you
it
are that
is
big
his,
at a podcast.
It is his man room, cave.
Yeah.
So, you got to know what's in there, right?
There is a performative aspect to the man cave. I will say he has his own personal man cave at his residence, but the man cave for the recording of Club Random is a set.
He doesn't,
When all is said and done,
he doesn't watch any big games there or anything?
he does not prefer to watch games.
He's not eating wings there or anything.
Unless he had Sean Evans from Hot Ones, I don't believe he would be eating wings in that room.
Okay.
But am I amiss to say perhaps he has the disease? That
The
maybe
addiction gene
is
or-
what some people in AA would call it. I mean, I think he likes to drink a lot. And
he loves
I don't
to
want
smoke.
I don't want to see him in a bad place later on. I mean, he's a podcaster. He's got to stay healthy and fit, right?
I mean, I did appreciate that he did pour himself a glass of water. He added some flavored juice to it, I think, to add it to the seltzer, give some spark to it. He says that it's his healthier soda. But I mean, he truly knew his way around various bottles like an esteemed alchemist, I thought. I mean, he had
He was
his
very
tequila.
fidgety. Very fidgety.
He had a jigger that he poured tequila in, This guy's proficient when it comes to liquids.
Part of that just comes with age, I
Yeah.
believe. It's mainly his experience, his life experience,
Okay.
that allows him to have sort of a more knowledge about certain topics than most would.
Yeah.
Alcohol happens to be one of them. It's one of his sort of special interests.
Okay.
I guess I'm just
frame it
worried
that
that, I don't want to see in 10 years he's now unhealthy and he can't continue podcasting, right? Because that's the thing about podcasting is that people, they form a bond with these hosts
Yeah,
that we
that's
can,
right.
trust them so much that, basically whatever they're saying, I'm just going to take that as gospel.
Yeah.
So what if something happened to Bill? What if he drank too much? He fell down the stairs?
And keep in mind, podcasting is certainly an arduous task to be doing.
That's what
week
I'm
after
saying.
week. You do, it's taxing on the mind and body, and I do hope, Bill, that
I'm learning that
Yeah.
as we speak.
But
Yeah.
on the body, right, I don't know how much that it really applies to Club Random, given the fact that they don't have to hold mics and they don't wear
That's true.
headphones.
That's a good point. That is a good point.
So Bill is looking after himself in that regard.
Which they probably have a couple boom ops on set, right?
Yeah.
Do you know how they capture the audio?
It is they have 3 boom ops, and they also have lavalier microphones.
They do have lavs. I
Yeah.
didn't see any wires. I was looking for them.
It's interesting. Those are hidden in the hair, as if similar to a Broadway performance. So if you look very closely, they're sort of dots right on the tops of their foreheads, and those would be those are the backup microphones. But yeah,
Okay, well,
I do want to comment that Bill, as much as he knows his way around the drink, he also knows his way around food. He made it clear in this episode that he hates American food. He argued that there's no good food in America. Whenever he goes on tour or anything, he packs his own food, eats it. And he could, I think his argument maybe is that Americans are too fat based on our diets.
George Garland was ringing the alarm, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
To stand up, and I think he's still, Bill is carrying the torch of that, right?
Yeah.
Do you think there's any credit to what he's saying?
personally, I don't have a belief either way. I believe that Bill is starting to work that into his next hour of stand-up. So that's something that we can look forward to, is hearing more thoughts from him on that.
I will look forward to that.
And, before I'm sort of making my own opinion on that, I think I would like to hear his take at least. But
I am curious. It's like he's packing his food for these tours and everything. Is this food being imported from outside the country? Because is he not getting American food from the grocery? I don't know. I couldn't quite discern what his logistical.
it's a private
backgrounds are.
chef.
Okay.
It's all private
All
chef.
But the food is being sourced from overseas.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, he's going to get hurt by Trump's tariffs, no?
he may. He absolutely may. But
That's why I took a jab at him earlier in the episode.
I mean, I don't know how much lunch money he has in the budget, but, that might cost a pretty penny.
I would say plenty. I would say that is maybe where most of the budget goes.
Do you think Bill still has a good deal of cash on hand? A lot of principal to invest in further comedy projects?
I do, and I would say, just from his general demeanor, his sort of ultra calm, ultra cool persona, I've never once seen him falter, and I think that's a result of living a very cushy, for lack of a better term, life.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess just man to man, I'm curious. Do you think there's any good food in America?
I like Five Guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta agree with that.
Yeah.
They're pretty good. Cam, how do you feel when Bill said that there was no good food in America?
I was a little hurt by that. I've lived on both the East Coast and West Coast.
Oh.
I've had incredible food in both places.
Mm-hmm.
I've been down south a few times. I've been to Texas. I've been to Kentucky. And
I didn't realize that.
Now, I will admit, in Kentucky, the best food I had there was Indian food.
Really?
So, again, maybe Bill, I don't know, what kind of place.
He's ordering the wrong things, probably.
That could be it, too,
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know. I think is he a proponent maybe of RFK's Make America Healthy Again? I'm just trying to find where he lands politically.
I mean, Maha, Make America Healthy Again, and Maher, I mean, maybe he just, he appreciates kind of the similarity in his surname and RFK's slogan. There might be something there, Cam.
Certainly possible.
Well, guys, let's play ball here. Around 13 minutes and 25 seconds, Bill tries to poach Haliey on the Club Random, saying he could bring her on his podcast network as a sex expert. She could have kind of her own thing where she just is very
He said it should be serious. He wanted it to be a serious discussions because there's a lot of serious issues with sex and sex culture that he feels has popped up in recent years.
But this confused me a little bit because I think a lot of the conversation he was saying, you know, there was that fateful night. Let's move on past that. The world needs to go from Hawk to Haliey. But then to me, the sex expert thing felt like we're going right back to that. Did that strike you any sort of way?
The way I see it, it was strictly a business offer on Bill's part. He loves to create opportunities for young creators. That's part of his initiative these days.
But the sex part specifically, do you feel like it seemed like he was trying to get away from Hawk, but this felt like he was going back to it?
Was this sort of part of what you wanted to discuss with me? Like set this up in a certain way? I'm very simply a student of Bill's work.
Yeah.
I'm not here to comment on the ethics of anything. Of course. It's
Well, Sean, I'll give him that he's not a porn guy. I think he's pretty against porn. I think he acknowledges that it's definitely warped the younger generation's mind.
spitting specifically. He takes great issue with.
I think probably years from, 2010 to 2015 in particular, the iPhone gets released. You can just browse on the internet all the time, right? So young men, it's like they're hooked by porn. Everyone is, but I think young men specifically really fell into the grasps of it.
That's a good point.
And I think Bill was really kind of rallying against that. Has he always been anti-porn, I guess is my question?
He's always been anti-porn. As far as the digital age goes.
Well, good on him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a brave stance to be in today's times, I'd argue. Everyone's addicted to porn. People can't get enough of it, and I think it's noble that Bill has distanced himself from the industry. I mean, it's incredibly predatory, as we've learned as years go on and on.
Sure.
I mean, I got to give him props for taking a stance on that and pushing Haliey to be more proactive in combating that kind of industry and, becoming more of a outspoken sex expert.
An educator. Really.
Yeah, exactly.
Education is paramount in Bill's values.
It is, and I think he was also decrying the poor education system that a lot of young people have to go through, right?
Sure.
I mean, he was saying back in my generation, we actually had classes. We had kids with parents, 2 parents for the most part. I think he was looking at Haliey. There was a moment where she got a little kerfuffled when he was saying, my generation, we had 2 parents, and then she was like, hey, is that a personalized joke on me? Because, she grew up with Granny. Her mom's pretty much out of the picture. She was raised by her father as well, but it felt almost to me like a sort of jab from Bill to Haliey.
Hey, is that a personalized joke?
A personalized
Yeah.
joke. Okay, we're not using the word personalized correctly.
As a personalized joke. And then he actually went a step further to say, no, that's not even a personalized joke.
He chided her. He's like, "What? You got to know how to use the word personalized. That was incorrect." But then I guess Haliey then revealed to him he didn't really know that she didn't have 2 parents in the picture. And I guess then he realized that he fucked up, because that was a fuck up on his part. Another Bill flub that I think we skipped past earlier, but
He was probably struggling to tread water for a moment there.
Yeah.
As we've discussed prior, I mean, there have been several slip ups, and they are, rearing their heads a little bit more frequently than they have in the past. But as a whole, I think we can say he's generally quite on it.
yeah, I mean, I think we just both wanted to put another point in our girl Haley's corner.
Sure.
She definitely was in the right there, and
I'm not seeing it as a competition.
Oh, but she certainly kicked his front tooth then, no?
What did you guys think about his ad reads? Could we just get a moment to applaud his ad reads? I think they're consistently a highlight of his episodes.
Bravo, Bill.
of
Bravo.
course, yeah. I mean, he knocked it out of the park. I imagine that's a highlight of your research week after week.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes. Spent a lot of time rewatching the ads.
Yeah, and I imagine, I imagine Haley's pretty close to him, and her excellence in ad reads at this point. I mean, she's been doing it for 13 weeks. And I think she's just built up the stamina to handle this kind of work.
It's impressive.
It takes a lot. You can tell, and it's awesome being able to see Haley's growth. But it was interesting to jump to Bill and just see a guy who's been studying this for
A
years.
seasoned
Just
professional.
truly
really.
inveterate. And I think, it was incredible. Cam, I remember you had a certain note about it though on the first one at least. It wasn't Bill's fault.
I had one critique, totally not Bill's fault. I actually want to blame this on more of the art department. I think this was a double fuck up, art department and then the cam op. We're gonna get to the cam op here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was doing an ad for Cuts, if I remember correctly, and then there was a Mountain Valley spring water bottle, kind of in the left side of the frame on the table, and it was showing a little bit too visibly for my liking because when you're trying to service a sponsor of the show, let's not do product placement for another company, right?
Yeah.
Now, again, that's going to fall on props department. I think it's going to fall on script supervisor, right, for continuity.
Yeah.
There's a lot of departments that can take the blame here. Again, if Bill doesn't watch the cut, how is he supposed to know? Now, it's going to make him look bad, of course.
Yeah, with the sponsors, I mean, I'm sure they were on his ass.
Is it a continuity issue if it's in separate advertisements?
Well, they're paying attention to the small details and all. Yeah.
And the continuity actually would be, well, for better this time on the second ad read, I think someone awoke to the fact that, oh my God, that's showing. They pushed it to the side a little bit more so it's less visible. You can maybe only see Valley on the water bottle. I thought that was a really big improvement.
Yeah.
I thought that was incredible.
They do pay attention to detail. I will say just one thing is I don't know if we should ever expect perfection with Club Random. I don't think it's striving for that.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Because again, I think that would be, most podcasts are like, they just do the best they can, but is there such a thing as a perfect podcast?
That's very interesting. I don't know.
I think the medium really looks towards a sort of utopian kind of broadcasting scenario, but has any podcast really delivered that?
I'll say this one is coming close, gentlemen.
I would have to agree.
Bill, I mean, he's quite the character. So he did admit around, I want to say 35 minutes, that he was a big fan of Taylor Swift when she was more country.
Yes. He's been very outspoken about that.
When Sparks Fly is apparently one of his favorite songs. It's on a lot of his playlists.
Which these are publicly available on his Spotify. If you search Bill Maher,
Okay.
you can see his personal playlists. He keeps his account public.
Does he?
We'll have to check that out, Cam.
Yes.
Do deeper dive on Bill.
It's
after
fun.
this.
It's fun to listen to.
Do you think he keeps company with Dave Portnoy? Because I know Dave is a really big Taylor fan. He was on the Eras tour.
Yes, Bill has been trying for a long time to get into one of Dave's pizza reviews, from my understanding. It's still in the works because they want it to be the best that it can be. However, it's definitely in talks. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is, Bill, after this ad read, he tooted his own horn about his tour dates. I imagine these shows are awesome. Have you ever been to one of his?
I've never personally been.
Okay.
I've seen video.
Okay, yeah.
Crowd sourced video, and it's definitely a goal of mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems like he goes all over the place. I mean, it should be fun to check one of those out.
He loves tour, and it's another reason why he can empathize with an artist like Taylor Swift. It's they both understand, different parts of the world from touring there with their art.
They're certainly worldly.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought at 33 minutes 50 seconds that Bill did an awesome Taylor Swift impression. He as a comedian, he just kind of went, you can't be Taylor Swift being like, oh, I'm 35, I'm dating a football player.
35 was a little old to be like, my boyfriend's a football player. And I wear his jersey to the game with his number on it.
I thought it was a really
That's right.
masterful impression. Like, he knew his subject, the subject that he was taking a dig at.
Exactly. He does extensive research. This is something that a lot of people don't know, is that a lot of the hour of stand-up that he builds, if you watch his last special and you look at his work before that, many of the jokes in the special were actually spawned on Club Random as improvised quips.
Yeah.
And he's still doing that. You can tell he's not only building a tight 5, he's building a tight hour.
And that's just someone who's confident in their craft and all.
Exactly.
Gentlemen, can I just jump in here
Yeah,
real
of
quick?
course, yeah.
Can I say Bill Maher might be top 3 comedians of all time, along with Matt Rife?
Okay.
Can I just say that? I think he's one of the greats.
You're
no?
certainly allowed.
I don't know who would be 3. I mean, Matt's 1, Bill, I guess. Yeah, I could argue him being 2. But yeah, 3, I guess, is still up for grabs. I have to check out more comedy.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not very well versed in the medium.
Yeah. But I saw Bill, this is just him doing what he does. He had a rip a Michael Jackson joke at 36 minutes and 7 seconds. They talk about Michael Jackson, and Bill just couldn't contain himself. He goes, unconventional babysitter.
Michael Jackson also,
Yeah, I like
don't-
Michael Jackson.
You like him? Who doesn't?
Yeah, he's got good music.
Oh, yes. Unconventional babysitter. But
And you could see the smirk on his face. Like he'd been holding that one in, but he's just like, I gotta let this go. I mean, this is what I do. I'm confident at it. You're gonna laugh. I got a chuckle out of both me and Cam.
Yes, it's an exact example of his sort of vibe on stage, and
Yeah.
you could tell even Haliey was taken aback. She said, "Where do you come up with this stuff?" And
Yeah.
that even got Bill.
Yeah.
And
That was a
I
great
I was
joke.
glad to see that moment of bonding between them.
Yeah. At 39 minutes and 3 seconds, the camera operator reports for duty. We see a tilt upward with the camera. I think it was on Bill.
Can I just hop in here for another moment?
Yeah, of
Did
course.
they borrow the cam op from Talk Tuah? Because, Sean, we've had our problems with this sort of freelance cam op, the DP involved. These guys are thugs. They manhandle the camera. They're shaking it around. I mean, it's brutality, right?
Not on Bill's podcast.
There were a couple moments where the camera tilted up in a way that was really distracting and took away from the conversation. Is
Well,
this typical behavior, or do you think they got a rogue agent in there?
I would say
It felt like they were trying to sabotage Haliey, is what I'm saying, because they mess with her on her show, and now that she's on Bill's show, why is the camera moving like this?
even though Bill doesn't watch the cuts, he is like I mentioned before, he's very heavily involved in the cinematography. So I would say that was probably an intentional tilt. If you watch it back, I don't know exactly the moment you're talking
there were
about,
like
but
3 tilts.
well, if you watch back on those moments, it's probably some sort of something he wanted to emphasize, or some sort of change in status. He does this a lot with his comedy as well. So in
It's
his
subversive.
specials, it's subversive, and in his specials, there's lots of tilts.
Okay.
So I don't know if that was the mistake that you maybe think.
I'm just a little protective of Haliey because I don't want her going on now that her podcast is, pretty big. She's going to be asked to be a guest on other people's podcasts, and I want to make sure that they're protecting her from all these fucking wild, jarring
these
camera
jackals.
movements.
Yeah.
That, they're hounds.
Yeah, these
know?
cam ops, I don't know. In a city ripe with show business,
It's
Los
insidious.
Angeles, you'd think that there would be better camera operators behind
Well,
the cameras.
One man's trash is another's treasure. I mean, I would consider these moves artful in the context of the show.
But when it's shaking like something out of Blair Witch, which is just giving me feeling nauseous.
Is that what we're talking about?
I think these tilts, if the camera flew up, right?
I almost got vertigo
Is
looking
this something
at this
they
thing.
can't figure out before they roll?
Yeah.
Really?
It's something they have figured out before. That's what I'm trying to argue.
Okay, but then why only 3 times? Why are they not just playing with the entire episode?
It's essentially, if I had to guess, it would be to trigger some sort of subconscious feeling. So perhaps an anxiety that you're experiencing is intentional. It's part of the conversation. It's part of the general emotional trend of the piece.
Look, I'm no Philistine here. Please.
I would never.
I mean, I got to say, Sean, you're pretty artful in your manner and persuasion. You got me coming around thinking differently on this. I mean, as much...
Have we been looking at it through the wrong lens, Peter?
I'd hate to say it. I don't want to be definitive in this, but it's possible. I mean,
I think the cam op is a crook, though. Who are you kidding?
I still side with that when
He's
it comes
dirty.
to Talk Tuah.
He's dirty.
With Talk Tuah, I just can't see the art in it. With Bill Maher's, it's more laid back on its surface.
It's a different beast.
He's a different beast, and I do think there's maybe more artistic merit in the camera movements in this episode. Now that I think about it,
one more thing I'll add is that there is an extensive vetting process for every crew member that comes around Club Random. It's at least 5 interview rounds before you even get to talk to Bill.
Yeah, because Bill's been doing this for so much longer. Haley's new on the scene; she's the disruptor. I feel like a lot of the union guys in LA behind the cameras probably are scared to take the risk with working with her at the moment. I mean, of course, she's the total firebrand, the hottest game in town, but I don't think that the union guys have caught on to that
Well,
yet.
no, hold on. Is Bill Maher's Club Random, is that a right to work podcast? Or does he employ union cam ops?
It's union, and
It is.
and he often employs people that he worked on his television projects with.
Okay, not every podcast is. Only asking because I know Dave Portnoy's Barstool Sports, that's a right to work podcast as well, right?
Yeah.
He's very much against
The whole
unions.
network is, certainly right to work.
But okay, I mean, I guess that's good to know. That certainly has me at ease. But I think they're probably gonna have to let that title graphics editor fly, huh? After that,
Yeah, that fuck up was egregious.
with Haley's name. How do they usually deal with people that do things like that, Sean? Do they just give them the boot immediately? Is there
No,
room for a second chance?
I think he's more than fair when it comes to little mistakes. Like I said, it's not. We shouldn't be expecting perfection in podcasting, and so a mistake like that, I think. Yes, Bill would likely talk to the crew member involved, but
so I'm saying, is it more of a slap on the wrist, or are they leaving? And if they do leave, do you have any information? Do they get, still get a pension, any sort of exit package? Do they still get options and, to podcast?
he does promise to act as a reference for any employees that do sort of end up out of his ecosystem. But in this particular case, I think it would be more of a slap on the wrist. So.
Okay.
So in the next segment, Bill goes on to clarify that he's a fan of good country music. He says, like all kinds of music, I'm a fan of the good music in each genre. And then he listed off two country stars I'm unfamiliar with. And then Haley threw him Keith Bentley, I believe was the name. He was totally unfamiliar, left Haley aghast.
Yeah.
And then Bill clarified too that he doesn't really like country music with fiddles in it. That's where he has to tap out when
That's
it
right.
comes to listening to the stuff.
That's right.
Yeah, Pete,
it's-
I totally agree with you, but clean up on aisle Bill, right? Did you guys catch the part where Bill was cutting his stogie and then the top of it flew off onto his lap? He made a complete mess in front of Haley and no one picked it up.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty sloppy. I did notice that.
yes, I noticed that. I was hoping you guys weren't going to bring that up.
Is this a rare occurrence? Maybe this has happened just on this.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's part of the style of the show to be sort of more impromptu, and it feels uncut.
Yeah.
and that's by
Is there-
design.
Yeah.
Is there an on-site custodian that could clean that up for him? Were they afraid to jump into frame here? How does that usually happen if someone makes a mess?
I'm not familiar with their practices because often it just doesn't come up as an issue. I don't believe they have a custodian. Perhaps the building does.
I do have to applaud Bill on his cinema verite approach to podcasting, in which one take does the trick.
course.
He's not trying to go back, retrace his steps, capture an artificial sense of who he is.
Well, Pete, it's pretty obvious that Bill Maher employs a sort of neo-realism when it comes to the course of his podcast production.
Absolutely. No, there's no smoke and mirrors involved with Club Random. It's as he says, he's essentially the opposite of an actor.
Yeah.
Bill is just he is who he is.
I thought that was especially poignant. I
Yeah.
mean, Bill is unabashedly himself.
correct.
And I think more of us could strive to be that. I feel like a lot of us feel uncomfortable in our own skins. It's a damn shame. I feel like everyone should be proud to be who they are.
His confidence is truly one of the reasons that many scholars like myself are so attracted to his work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Bill doesn't pull any punches, right? I mean, he comes full force and says, if you don't like my comedy, maybe you have shit taste.
Yeah.
I applaud that.
I applaud that as well. I think it's bold.
Yeah, and I do think Haley picked up on Bill's general coolness and ease, and I think she saw a potential suitor in him for Granny, and I thought this was a very cute idea. I mean, we know Haley's granny is 80 years old, lives in rural Tennessee, could probably use a new spark of love in her life. And I thought it was sweet of Haley to see Bill and think of him in that context. And I know he'd probably have to deal with a bit with Pop-Pop, given that Pop-Pop, as we've learned on Talk Tuah, lives on a back cabin on Granny's property. He makes her breakfast from time and time again. But so Bill might have to do a bit of a Scott Pilgrim kind of situation with that. But I do think that was a really nice gesture from Haley to be like, hey, I recognize that you're 68 and single. It's a ripe age to fall in love again.
Absolutely.
The one problem with that is Bill only dates younger girls, Pete.
Now, Cam, I mean, we have a guest here. Let's keep it objective. I think what Cam is maybe trying to say is that Bill probably isn't keen on seeing an older woman. I mean, given that he's getting up there in age and Granny's another 12 years older than him.
Yeah, I mean, as he told Haliey, it's just sort of she's barking up the wrong trees, is how he put it, if I recall.
But in the Holly Madison episode of Talk Tuah, they said that they saw Bill at a plethora of Playboy parties.
Okay, well,
accompanied by younger girls.
cut it
in their
out.
20s.
Gentlemen, let's keep it to. If I wanted to talk about Bill's personal life, I would be a whole different kind of person. I'm strictly a Marophile in the sense that I am interested in his career.
Yes,
okay?
and that's
his
why we
public-facing image. I don't know any of these kinds of details. I'm not a stalker.
Yeah, and we brought you on to talk about his show and his body of work. Cam,
that's what I was led to believe.
You were the one that brought up Granny. Sorry.
Look, you're taking some liberties with your objectivity here. Let's stay on track. At 53 minutes and 53 seconds, we get a new camera angle. I thought this was an interesting wide angle from afar. We see more of the room that they're in.
Yeah, like the stripper pole.
Cam, knock it
What?
off.
I'm just
The
saying.
camera angle, if I could speak to that. That is not new to Club Random's audience, but as a new viewer, I understand that.
And it came up in the discussion of Haliey noticed a painting off screen, so it was revealing that. A bit.
It was strictly about the art.
Yeah.
But someone was getting a blowjob in the painting.
Cam.
What? He was. Bill was the one that pointed it out.
Is this sort of the great Bill heist? Is that why you guys brought me here? I have no interest in the man's
Why are you
personal
looking
life.
at me like that, Pete? I didn't do anything. They said that during the episode.
Bill didn't notice that detail until this episode.
Well,
that was
been
new to him in the painting.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Okay. Sean, I'm sorry this happened this way.
Oh, great. Now
No,
I'm
I'm
in
not.
trouble
I'm not.
with Pete.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Look,
Cam, we do have a lot to unpack in our post-game analysis of this.
gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. The only reason I'm leaving is because I need to get back to my research. So
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry this had to be cut short. Cam had to, get on his old soapbox here.
I'm just repeating what they said in the episode.
Yeah. Okay, Cam, you spoiled a bit.
my
Sean,
God.
it was great having you on. I appreciate you taking any amount of time to sit down with us, and you really illuminated a lot of Bill's history and work for us.
I'm glad to. I'm glad if there's any other time that you would like to discuss that element of it further, I'm happy to return.
Okay. Well, just if you can stick with us to close it out, I'd really appreciate it. I mean, this has been Talk Tuah. This is episode 14 or no 15. I apologize for us. We have taken a dive into Bill Maher's excuse
Maher.
me. Yeah, Maher.
It's not Maher?
No, it's
Like a Maher?
Maher. We covered this, Cam. It's Maher. We covered Haliey's appearance on Bill Maher. Excellent appearance, great episode. We check out more of Bill Maher's work. Next week, we'll see what we decide to cover in Haliey's orbit while she's still absent.
Can we do another Club Random episode?
I think we have lost the backing of Bill's esteemed scholar here, thanks to you, Cam. But
All right, we'll talk off.
Again, I apologize profusely, Sean.
I didn't do anything. I just talked about what...
Cam, you did enough. So we will see what we cover next week in Haliey's orbit. I'll be giving Cam a stern talking to after the show. Someone might be losing their Matt Rife pillow.
Are you fucking serious?
Have a great week. Thank you for joining us. Take it easy. Bye. Sean, I'm sorry.